Welcome back to the Fox Robbins Business Show. Great to have you back. We have an excellent episode tonight that you're going to enjoy very much with Bob Jenkins, and we'll get to that in a minute. But this show is all about developing your best business ideas. And this show is all about encouraging existing businesses, upgrading and modernizing and improving, or the starting up of new businesses, all aimed at providing long-term, interesting, and higher-paying careers for young people here in Southeast Massachusetts. And I am the host of the show. I'm Bill Fox, and our co-host is none other than the inimitable Cliff Robbins.
How are you, Bill?
I've gotten used to referring to him as the coach. I consider him my coach. I mean, in the Belichick.
Thank you. I was concerned that it was the Ernie Pantuso coach.
Cheers, yeah. Anyway, welcome to the show, and we're going to, we have such good content tonight and a lot to talk about with Bob Jenkins. We're going to get right along into the regular feature of this show that opens all of our episodes, which is called Cliff's Notes. And we take advantage of Cliff's wide knowledge of the business scene in New England. And Cliff, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, tonight, Bill, I'm going to talk about brand identity. You notice that Cliff's Notes, that little thing that we put, in this segment?
Yes.
I hate to admit it, but I didn't create that. I stole it. At any rate, yeah, I'd like to talk about brand identity. Our guest tonight is a very interesting guest, and I talk a lot about brand identity and the power of brand identity and the creation of a brand identity. Brand identity certainly is a lot more than just a logo, and we'll get into some of that stuff tonight, but certainly the most recognizable thing about a brand is the logo, and there you have a Nike logo, which you see constantly everywhere, one of the world's largest clothing companies. There you see a Dunkin' Donuts sign. Now, I tell the story of sitting in a conference room in Boston with a company who had a brand identity crisis, and I looked out the window, and I said, about a mile away or so, I said, there's a sign hanging off that building. Can you folks read that sign? And they said, no. I said, well, what is it? He says, it's a Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, didn't have to read it. You could see clearly, the colors, and it's in our mind's eye. Well, that's a Dunkin' Donuts sign. Polo, if you were wearing your polo shirt instead of our logo, immediately you know that's a very high quality shirt made of cotton, very expensive, unless you get it at a discount store. And you know exactly what that brand is, what that identity represents, what that logo represents, excuse me. Do you know what the world's most valuable brand is, Mr. Bill? Of course you do, because you were here when we rehearsed, right?
Right.
Well, don't tell them, okay? This is a test, folks, all right? If we had the right to use this brand, I could get us $100 billion worth of investment to start a company, even if we didn't have a product, because this brand that I'm going to show you is considered the world's most valuable brand. If you're in Hong Kong, in Hawaii, Honolulu, or Hamburg, Germany, if you show this brand to somebody in this world, the minute they see it, they know exactly what it is. And what is it? It's Coca-Cola. You see that brand anywhere in the world, and you show that to anybody in the world, and they immediately know exactly everything about what that company sells. And that's brand identity at its highest form. I just want to mention tonight that brand identity is all about creating value for your company. It's all about creating loyalty from your customers. It's all about the experience your customer is going to get when that customer does business with you. And that's why a brand like Polo, like Nike, and certainly like Coca-Cola, which again is the world's most valuable brand, is a very valuable thing. It's probably the most valuable commodity item that your company is going to build over its lifetime. And we're going to talk to somebody tonight that right here on Cape Cod is creating a brand identity for his company. And I think you'll find the show very, very interesting.
Right, and we're going to, I mentioned earlier in the show that we're going to welcome a guest tonight. Gentleman's name is Bob Jenkins, and he is the CEO, he's the founder and CEO of Local Hooker Rods.
What'd you call it?
Local Hooker.
Oh, okay.
Right. He's going to explain all of that. But and Bob says he's from Connecticut, but he summered on Cape Cod. I did myself. That's why I was introduced to Cape Cod. So does that make me a wash ashore?
We're all wash ashore.
Yeah, wash ashore. Right.
I washed ashore 27 years ago, but I'm still washing.
Bob knows Cape Cod. He summered here. He went to Wilbraham Academy. He was 4 years in the Marine Corps. And then he went to Northeastern University and studied in communications, speaking of communications. And he also worked for high-profile employers such as Polaroid and American Express.
I've heard of those brands.
And all of those in their day were a business startup at one point, were they not?
Everybody was.
Everybody was.
Got to start someplace.
Surprisingly, and we just found out about this, is that Bob was in the World Trade Center in 9/11 and managed to escape and walk down from the building 39 stories. So there's another story within a story. But after 9/11, Bob says he decided to start his own company, and took the plunge. And that's what we're going to talk to him about tonight, is what that jumping in that swimming pool was all about.
Absolutely, the courage it took.
And he created Local Hooker Rods, fishing rods, because he had a new vision for fishing rods.
Right.
And we're going to ask him about that. So don't go away. We're going to bring Bob in and let him talk to you about his experiences. At this point, it's no fair. No surfing, and no running for the fridge. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in a second. Thank you. Thank you for not running for the fridge or grabbing the change control on your TV and sticking with us. And we're back, and we're going to talk to Bob Jenkins. And Bob, welcome to the Fox Robbins Show. Great to have you here.
Bob, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
This is going to be fun. You're the first hooker we've ever had on the show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
First local hooker.
Local hooker, of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
right. We had a distant hooker on the show? Okay.
Yeah.
Just a hooker, yeah.
Interesting name for your company.
Thank you.
You had a vision to start this company how long ago?
It started about 5 years ago. After having done some other entrepreneurial ventures, I started the company 5 years ago. Started it with the name Local Hooker, and before I had my first rod built, I knew that I wanted to build a brand based on the name alone.
Right. Okay. Tell us what you saw as the problem in the fishing industry. That basically, what was the problem that you had? You have a different type of fishing rod, right?
I have a different. Well, I do have a different type of fishing rod. Yeah. One of the rods that we built, the problem that I saw originally was the rods that were being brought into this country, that were being produced overseas, were really low quality rods, and there were some intricacies to them that they weren't working properly. I use the analogy with people all the time. I say it's like getting your new tires put on your car without getting them balanced and without getting the front end aligned. And so what I wanted to do was bring back the pride and craftsmanship to really good high-end rods built here in the U.S. That said, we found and redeveloped a rod that had been patented 100 years ago called a spiral or an acid wrap rod. And that's the rod that you're referring to that we've really been pushing hard lately.
Right, and that's your differentiator because, when we talk on the show all the time, you start a company, as Michael Porter at Harvard University said 30 years ago, basically, if you're going to go into business, you're either going to be cheaper or different. And if you're going to be cheaper, we say you better be Walmart. You better be the biggest fish in the sea.
Yep.
And you've chosen, which is the smart path, to come up with something that's radically different from your competition. And as you say, it's made in the USA. It's a very high quality rod. And this is how you're going to market. And this is the way you're going to create your brand identity.
Exactly. And creating the brand identity starts off with something like what I'm trying to do with local hooker rods. I started off with the rods knowing that I was going to build the best rods we could in the United States, using the best components we could, the best craftsmanship that we could do to build the rods. That said, my goal has been since day one to build it into a brand. I want this thing to be much bigger than just fishing rods. I want it to entail hooks, gaffs, harpoons, apparel. I really want to grow this into a brand. I don't know if I'll be as big as Coca-Cola someday, but why stop short? I know
How
that.
about Nike? Can you be as big as
Yeah,
Nike?
I can be bigger.
Yeah, there you go.
I can be bigger. I know that it can be done.
Yeah.
By the way, Bob, we're talking, not that I'm the world's greatest fisherman, but we're talking rod, not reel. I mean, the reel, you get that's
Correct.
made by other
That's correct.
manufacturers who specialize in that mechanism.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. I build strictly just the rods for the moment. Yep.
Now you've been doing this for 5 years, as you say, and
5 years.
when we talk in a lot of the shows, we talk about marketing, and what we call the marketing mix, which is the 4 Ps of marketing: your product, your price, your place, your promotion. Your product, we understand, it's fishing rods, it's apparel right now, and of course the local hooker and the tagline, which we'll get to, is what you're going to surround your brand identity with. But you're going to go ahead and build this company over the next God knows how many years on the basis that it's a high quality. You're going to position yourself as a very high quality product, right? And go ahead.
Everything that we do is quality,
Right.
And service.
Yep.
You can't have one without the other.
Right.
And so my background has been in quality.
Yeah.
Having spent time with Polaroid and American Express, I understand customer service.
Right.
Having spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, I also understand working your tail off. And a good friend of mine, Bill Hewlin, says to me, and we talk about this often, is we're just too stupid to know how to quit.
Well, that's a good thing, and
it is a good thing.
That's very good for an entrepreneur to do that.
You know what? Sometimes you just have to be. You just cannot say no. No
Right.
matter what happens, you just go for it.
Keep going, right?
And you've got to keep going.
Absolutely.
When I first met you, Cliff, the smile on your face when I told you that I had started a company called Local Hooker Rods, you just beamed, and you said, Bob, I meet people all the time, and I see and hear ideas all the time, and you said, you have a winner.
Yeah, you have a brand.
I have a brand.
That's what I said.
I have a brand.
Now, one of the P's of the 4 P's of the marketing mix is called the place issue. How are you going to market?
Good question. What I've done was, a lot of people ask me if I sell direct, and the answer is I don't. What I've chosen to do is to work strictly through the dealer network. So here on Cape Cod, I work with the high-end bait and tackle shops, off the Cape with the bait and tackle shops, all high-end. Up in Maine, Kittery Trading Post. Here on the Cape, a Goose Hummock Shop, Falmouth Bait and Tackle, Bad Fish Outfitters, Sportsport. I've got Chatham Bait and Tackle. All the good bait and tackle shops, the ones that understand how to ask a question, how to find out what the customer's needs are, and then present the solution. Truly selling, not order takers. So that's what I do, and then down through Connecticut, and I'm down in a shop in Florida as well. But everything I do is through a dealer network, and these guys they sell for me.
Incidentally, one thing I missed, Bob, when you started, did you start this by yourself? Or
No,
do
that's
you
a
have,
great question.
do you
I
have
actually-
partners,
Yep.
supporters, or whatever? Or were you all alone? Trying to run up to windward, or what was the deal?
I started with 2 partners. They were 2 brothers, and they were both married. They both had full-time jobs and not a lot of money. And they thought, as a lot of young, inexperienced entrepreneurs will think, you can start a company with a great name and a great idea, and somehow it just materializes and it all works. And the answer is no. No. You have to work your tail off. And the harder you work doesn't mean success. But these guys, and God bless them, because they had all the right intentions, thought that a great idea, it would just somehow, people would come to us and pay us a lot of money and it would all work. Yeah. I bought them out 3 years ago, and no hard feelings whatsoever. It just happens. But if you're going to start a business with partners, know who they are, understand, lay things out in the beginning, There's a lot of things that you're not going to see.
I love
Yeah,
it.
we have to have have a show that specializes on that. I mean, if you're going to
Absolutely.
Oh,
but right now you are
I'm it.
the owner. You own 100% of the.
I do.
Is this is this a corporation,
It
like
is.
a
Yep.
C or an S corporation?
S corp.
S corporation.
Yep.
And you're the sole owner at this
I am.
point.
I am.
Lone Ranger.
I am the Lone Ranger.
I love it when people come to me and they say, you know, I'm sick of working for corporate America. I want a balanced life. I want to start my own company. And I go, balanced life? Start your own company? There's
Yeah.
a misalignment there.
Yeah.
I say, are you, well, let's see, there's 168 hours in a week. Are you willing to work at least 56 of those? Sleep 56 and maybe take 56 for yourself? Because that's the minimum.
Minimum.
If you think you're going to work 25 hours a week and this thing's just going to take off and make you rich, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, no.
Because there's a ton of work to do to get a company out of the ground. I talk about when I started one of my small companies and I started with like 5 employees, I worked 70, 80 hours a week. Now, I'll grant you, 17, 15 years later, I had over 100 employees. And I had a lot of people working for me, and I put in a normal work week then,
Yeah.
running the company. But boy, to get it started,
Yeah.
I mean, Saturdays, Sundays, evenings, mornings at 6 o'clock, emergencies, getting stuff to customers. You work hard.
Speaking of one thing you said, magic word, money.
Money.
When you first started, I said I want to start a company, and I want to produce rods. By the way, were you intending to literally make them? I mean, make fishing rods with your own 2 hands, or
No, nope. I knew that I needed to find a good rod builder here in New England, and it's also a dying breed. There's not a lot of good rod builders around any longer. But I got very, very lucky very early on, and I found a guy who was a commercial fisherman most of his life, had been building rods most of his life, and he's been building rods now for over 30 years.
so you didn't have to go to China.
That was the thing. I was trying to bring the rods back here from China because China, the quality in China is just, you're not getting it, not in this business.
Right.
The money. So where'd the money come from? I mean, did it fall out of heaven or out of a tree or?
Right out of my pocket.
Right here. So,
Right out of my pocket.
Yeah.
I used to be in the real estate business, and I invested pretty well, and I had enough money put aside to be able to do this for a couple of years. And I thought, well, I'll do it. I'll put everything I have into it and build it to a certain point. Then I'll start to look for investors. So I did build it to a certain point. I met with the SBA very early on. Cliff and I have known each other for 4 years.
4 years, right.
Easily 4
yeah,
years.
right.
I think Cliff's one of the first people I went to seek out when I first started the company. Just
Did he ask for a plan? Did he or?
after he told me that I had a brand and he loved the brand and said, I see a lot of bad ideas, and he thought this was a good idea.
Still do.
I still don't, thank you. We then started to work on the plan.
Yep.
And we then developed the plan, and good friend of mine, Ann Concannon, helped me work the financials. My background, by the way, starting a business is not to be taken for granted. I have no financial background. You wouldn't want me in running your accounting department. But I know how to sell, I know how to market, I'm good with advertising. Those are my strengths, and I also recognize my weaknesses, and my weakness is finance. So I went to Cliff early on and said, I know how to do these things, and I believe I have a really strong brand here, but I don't know the first thing about running a company. And if you don't know how to run a company, as you said early on this evening, you need to be looking at those financials. You need to understand that it's your child, it's your lifeblood, it's your business.
Right.
The products are what get you there, but
Right.
this is what sustains you. And so starting the business, I did that. I went to SBA, I worked with Cliff, I worked with Annie. Annie helped me put the financials together. We then went through Melinda Ailes.
Right.
Melinda helped.
We've had her on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then we went to a bank,
Right.
and we got a line of credit. And that line of credit I've been using for the past year and a half now.
How many banks did you have to go up and down the street and and talk to 20 different banks, or did you target one from the beginning and it worked
We
out?
were really lucky. The SBA has relationships with the banks that have the SBA, and being a veteran, I also qualify for the SBA, the VA loan.
Patriot Express.
Patriot Express.
Right.
And so they turned this thing around literally within about 2 weeks. I was qualified.
He had a good business plan, good solid financials and pro formas, presented it.
Yeah.
And they looked at it and said, this is something that we know that we feel comfortable giving this man this money because we'll get paid back. That's what it's all about. That's right. But it was well put together. And
well put together. The one thing that you can never, that we didn't see when we put it together, was this thing called the recession that we've all just gone through.
Right.
So when you're writing your business plan, and when you're putting your business model together, and you're doing your numbers, and you're doing your performance, and you think everything's great, and boy, I can achieve those goals, something is going to fall out that you just never expected.
Absolutely.
We never expected this to happen.
No, of course not.
You know,
And you got to adjust to it.
and you got to adjust.
And
to
we
it.
have.
Yeah.
And
So one thing you said was very interesting about running the business, and we emphasize that on this show quite a bit. When you worked for Polaroid and American Express, you didn't have to worry about the financials.
I never.
Somebody else worried about that.
I never worried.
You had to go and sell those companies. You
was
were
it.
in sales, but you didn't have to worry about whether they were writing a check to a vendor. Somebody else did that. When you all of a sudden you're running your own business, there is nobody else worried about the financials. You got to worry about it.
I got to worry about
And
it.
that may not be your favorite thing by far. Your favorite thing is creating the rod, selling, promoting, using it, and so forth. That's the fun part.
I am a left-handed dyslexic. Okay. You want to do something with that? You put numbers in front of me, I'll turn around. I'm the last person that you want to do it. But you know what? I force myself to do it. I slow myself down, and I make it happen. I also have Sandy Scoville, a local Cape Business Associates. Sandy comes in once a week, twice if I need her, and she'll sit down with me, and she takes care of my book. She takes the paper and what I've organized, and then she makes it all happen and keeps me from getting in real trouble.
Right.
The point is that here in the Cape, in New England, anywhere you're going to start a business, there are people that will help you. They may not all be free like SBA was.
Right.
But there are people that will help you. And if you are going to go start a business and do this, don't be afraid to jump in. If you are passionate about it and believe in what you're going to do, you can do it.
Sure.
There are people that will see your passion. If you're not passionate about your business, trust me, nobody else is going to care. But you need to be passionate about it. When people feel your passion, they smell your passion, they see your passion, they're willing to come in and help you. Cliff, I'll say it again, the SBA was just incredible in helping me get mine started. Does that mean that it's a home run? Of course not. I got a lot of hurdles to go. I got a long, long way to go. The recession hasn't helped me, but there are people that are helping me. Being here tonight is a huge help, okay? We've got some other things that we're working on after this that are a big help. Ask for help. There are people that will help you.
Well, I want to.
Very well
One
said.
thing is you're an ex-Marine, so
Former.
you're made of iron.
I thought once
But I
a
want to
Marine,
ask
always
you
a
this:
Marine.
in starting your business, were you ever scared?
Yeah, you're always scared starting.
Since
your business.
yesterday, you mean?
Yeah, you're always scared. You know what? You are. You're always scared. But it also gets to the point. I think we're after 9/11. I look at life like, as long as I'm not in a building that's just been hit by a plane doing 600 miles an hour, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? Take away my birthday?
Yeah.
Okay, I can start over again.
Right.
I'm 54 years old. I have a lot invested in this. If I lose it, I lose everything. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Right.
So yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared every day, and I'm scared of the recession. But don't let it paralyze you not to do it.
No, I don't ask you that to be a comedian. I mean, I ask it because I figure there are people in our audience, maybe people who are thinking about starting a business.
Do
and
it.
say,
Do it.
well, gee, I might make a mistake.
Oh, we all make mistakes.
Oh, you're going to make mistakes every day of
Oh, my
running your
God.
business. I mean, there's only one person in the world that's never made a mistake, me. Oh, you're looking at the scars again, right? Oh, I've screwed everything up. That's how you learn.
Well, one thing is, what I wanted to ask you is this, is that, it must be a couple of years ago, I walked into a Cabela store, I imagine the same thing would be true if it was a Bass Pro Shop. But I walked into Cabela, they sell, fishing rods.
Sure.
And it's not that they sell fishing rods, but I looked and there was what struck me as a forest
Yeah.
of rods.
Black forest.
Of a whole
Black forest. Yeah.
I thought, there's a, I don't know how many are there.
Metaphor,
Well, of
yeah.
course, I was struck by it because I thought, and I'm not a fishing pro. I have fished, but I'm only an occasional fisher. But as a customer, I stood there and said, here's this forest. How would I ever make a decision, to pick a rod out of that forest? But I was thinking about you and starting your business. Don't you you're just join that forest? You're just another tree sitting there, or what? Or does that scare you, or
So
what?
how do you stand out in that
How do
forest?
you stand out, and why would you jump out at me?
Part of it is branding. Part of it is, I've got to develop the brand to cut through the clutter. I also need to train the salespeople to understand how to ask questions and to point people in toward my rods. Or you're going to walk in that forest and just grab a rod.
Right.
Or if they're being spiffed in the store, they're going to sell it. There's a lot of different ways.
So you have to work with your
I have to work.
distributors and train them. You got
Absolutely.
to train the trainer, basically.
That's correct.
So that person's standing with the customer and saying to the customer, do you want a really good rod? Do you want a well-balanced rod? Do you want a rod you can really enjoy?
True. Yes. Then you get to the point where I want to grow Local Hooker.
Right.
Local Hooker will be the brand. And as you had said earlier, Cliff, it'll be synonymous with quality, integrity,
Made in the USA.
made in the USA.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether it's a Local Hooker t-shirt, hat,
Doesn't matter.
rod, it doesn't matter what it is, it's the good housekeeping seal of approval.
Right.
Local Hooker is synonymous with quality.
Right.
So then people will walk into those stores and say, I want to look at a Local Hooker, or
Right.
show me what the local hookers that you have are, etc.
That came out, as you say, you mentioned, you get all the help you can get. There's so many people out there to help. One of the group of people quickly that I'd like to talk about, the folks up at Babson College that put
Tremendous.
together, that took your business plan and took the marketing piece and took it to the next level.
Do not be afraid, no matter where you are starting your business. Do not be afraid to go to all the local colleges and universities. Harvard University, Babson, Bentley, Simmons. Simmons wrote a business plan for me well, not a business plan, but they wrote a plan for me years ago with a patent that I have. Go to the colleges and universities, ask for help.
We're supported by the University of Massachusetts, and
UMass?
that is a
Oh, yeah.
university. And
Absolutely.
I put together some teams that were just wonderful.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you. I wish we had more time, as I
Bob,
always do,
thank
but
you.
especially tonight.
Bob.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Local Hooker,
Local Hooker, get bent.
get bent.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Fox Robbins Business Show. You can comment to us at foxrobbins@gmail.com, and you can also see we'll see this episode and other past episodes on Google Video Library or capemedia.org, which is the website for our production station here. And I want to thank our directors, David Major and Mary Alexander, for making this show possible. And we will see you guys next time.